Star Wars 7x7, episode 1801. Today, we're going to sort out those rumors about Laeta Kalogridis working on a Knights of the Old Republic movie and how that ties in, or whether it ties in, to the other work that's already underway. Let's go! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and we're going to set some background for you to begin with, and this will help put some of these rumors into context for you. So, if you're not familiar with Knights of the Old Republic, it is a video game that came out in 2003, and it is well beloved, and it details battles between the Jedi and the Sith thousands of years ago, nearly 4,000 years before the events of the original trilogy. Now, this story is not exactly canon anymore due to the purchase of Lucasfilm by Disney and the re-canonization, the reboot of the canon in 2014. So, yeah, there's that to consider for a start. And at Celebration Chicago, Josh Horowitz of MTV News interviewed Kathleen Kennedy and asked about Knights of the Old Republic, and she said, yes, we are developing something in that regard, and that would run counter to something that we talked about. I think we've talked about it a couple of times on the podcast, about Pablo Hidalgo trolling the notion of a Knights of the Old Republic Netflix series, but this apparently, whatever it is that's under discussion, is not a Netflix series, and it may not even be a Disney Plus series. It may be an actual straight-up movie, at least according to the rumors that are kicking around. But before we get to the rumors themselves, let's refresh ourselves on the fact that it was February of 2018 that Lucasfilm made the official announcement about David Benioff and D.B. Weiss being the folks chosen to write and produce. That is what the official release said, write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. And again, series is the word that was used in the official release from Lucasfilm, though in recent years that has been changed to trilogy. For example, the president of HBO referred to the work that they're doing for Lucasfilm as a trilogy, and I've seen that word picked up in other places as well, but not necessarily fully attributed. So there is that. And now the BuzzFeed story that came out on May 23rd that said that there is a trilogy in development for Benioff and Weiss, or at least referred to it as a trilogy, and also claimed that the movies that are on the Disney slate for 2022, 24, and 26 are all Benioff and Weiss movies. Now, that is not actually officially confirmed anywhere, and all Bob Iger has said is that the movie in 2022 is the Benioff and Weiss movie, or is a Benioff and Weiss movie, and he said that's all we're saying about that. He has not said, and no one else has said on the record anywhere, that 24 and 26 are Benioff and Weiss movies, or that they are even related to whatever movie is coming out in 2022. So let's, just set the record straight on that. And I'm going to circle back to the meat of that BuzzFeed story momentarily, but first, before I do that, I want to refer you back to a story in March of this year that was reported by Star Wars Newsnet. And as we've talked about on the show, as far as rumors and leaks go, they are one of the two most reliable websites that are out there for purveying these kinds of stories. And according to a source reporting to Star Wars Newsnet, there is a script that's been in development, and it's going to go into production in the fall, and it is alleged to be the first Benioff and Weiss movie and a Knights of the Old Republic movie as well. So, now that we have that foundation, we can circle back and tackle the BuzzFeed report, which is that Laeta Kalogridis is working on a Knights of the Old Republic script. That is the first in a trilogy, this is according to the report, which is citing 3 different unnamed sources, although they said they've reached out to various people for official confirmation and have received crickets in responses, which is naturally, of course, the way it would work. But things get a little bit dicey because it says that she was hired in the spring of 2018 to work on these, and that she is, developing Knights of the Old Republic as the first of a trilogy, but Benioff and Weiss are supposed to be writing a series or trilogy as well. So how could the two of them be associated with each other, or is it possible that this is actually a third trilogy that's happening here? Well, there is a way to see that through, and I'm going to explain that after the break, so stay tuned. Hey, Rebel Rouser. If you've got a business that needs to reach a dedicated audience of Star Wars fans, or you know somebody who does, then you might want to reach out to me. I've got a show that reaches thousands of people between the audio version, the video version, and our social media channels, and I'd love to find out how I can help you with your business ventures too. Just reach out at sw7x7.com/sponsors. That's plural SPONSORS. That's sw7x7.com/sponsors, and let's see how we can work together. Welcome back. All right, so before the break, we were trying to solve the logic problem of how is it possible that Kalogridis could be working on the same movie or set of movies that Benioff and Weiss are supposed to be working on. Well, as one quick reminder, both Michael Arndt and J.J. Abrams have producer credits on The Force Awakens. And in particular, that's relevant with the Michael Arndt thing because even though he wrote a script for The Force Awakens, or at least he did a first pass on the screenplay, he obviously was not ultimately credited with the screenplay, but he still has an associate producer's credit. And how that applies in this particular situation is that it's a situation where writers can have producers credits and not necessarily be the official writers of things. So that's one way into the possibility of Kalogridis and Benioff and Weiss working together on this situation. Another way in is sort of described by the Game of Thrones situation and about how seasons were written for those, for those episodes. And so there's actually a wonderful quote of the description of the process that comes from one of the writers on the series. This is from writer-producer Brian Cogman, and he said that the process has evolved over time, and I'm going to kind of excerpt some of his stuff here. But he says, generally speaking, they talk about the broad strokes of a season. For example, character X starts at blank, and they want him or her to end up at blank. And each writer gets a particular character or characters to follow, and so they set up sort of an outline for where the character should go and how they're going to get there. And once they all assemble to start production on the new season, they start moving stuff around, seeing how each element of the arc is going to get spread out across the multiple episodes or whatever. And then once that's done, then various writers are given individual episodes to script out. And so here's the particular then that I want to go all the way through with, where Brian says, I write my 2 scripts. He was given 2 scripts in a given season. He says, it takes me about a month and a half to do both. And Benioff and Weiss read them, give notes. I do a rewrite. Benioff and Weiss sometimes do a pass on it themselves. And we continue to tinker with all the scripts through prep and production, but generally they're camera ready when we finish them. So there you go. That's how it could work. So it's entirely possible that this is not a third trilogy, that this is actually a collaboration happening, and that Kalogridis was hired to do the initial work on this while Benioff and Weiss were finishing up their run on Game of Thrones. But it could also be a third trilogy too. I'd love to hear what you think the actual situation is, so drop me a line wherever you happen to catch this episode, or at home base for the show at sw7x7.com. For now, though, that is going to do it for this episode, and I'm so glad you joined me for it. And as always, may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.